Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales, featuring Michael St. John, Pat Trammell, and special guests.
It's Tuesday. It's October the 11th. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talking Memphis Wrestling. We will be joined a little bit later on by the producer of the show, Adam Dunn. We will be joined in a little bit by one of the founding members of the panel, Pat Trammell is in the house. Last week he's away. He's back. Have no idea what's been going on in his life, but I think it's all good. He looks happy. He's smiling. He's got his hat on. He's ready to rock and roll. Chris Ellis has a school function, senior day for Valley View for Southside. For Southside, I'm going to get heat on myself. Anyway, he will not be here until late, and I don't think Michael St. John will be here at all. Greg is in the house. Scott Hart is in the house. Don't rush me, Scott, saying let's get to action. I have about 80 rants before we get into action and a preview. Now, the rant I was going to get, the profanity-based rant calling an idiot an idiot. I was going to do that to open the show. However, respect to my friend Randy West. Randy doesn't think that it's professional when I say the F word or any of the cuss words or rant and rave and go crazy. And I was absolutely going to go crazy on one thing, what I consider a complete criminal goofball. But we're going to get there because I'm in a good mood. I am in a great mood. I am happy. David Midwood in the house. Rod W. Robinson is in the house. Hello to you. Panetta is saying, hey, everybody, and we won't waste any time. First of all, bringing in the producer of this show, who is probably relieved because he thought I was going to go somewhere at the start of that rant, but I switched it around, and you need to think, because you know what I was going to say. You know what I was going to say, so I'm sure you will probably want to thank the fact that I see Randy West watching this show, and it's the only reason I didn't do that rant.
Thank you, Randy West. Glad you're watching the show. You keep Randy right where we need him.
See, he can manipulate me. You can't manipulate me. Pat Trammell can't manipulate me. Chris Ellis can't manipulate me. Michael St. John can't. And Kevin Lawler damn sure can't. Anyway, I'll sneak that in. Al Tuttle, Al's another one. Al is another guy that calls in to this show, writes into this show, calls in to 953theticket.com at the Ticket Radio Network, 870-930-3776. And Greg Peel. Greg don't get on my nerves either. Just one guy in Memphis is getting on my nerves. That's never done anything in the wrestling business where you would consider it doing anything in the wrestling business. Anyway, Rod says maybe I shouldn't say maybe Randy Hill's going to chew me out. I'm not going to chew you out. I've got somebody way ahead of the list, and on Brooks and everybody else. So you doing good, Adam? How's your life? How's your family?
Oh, everything's going well. My wife is on vacation. My son is out of town for work, and my youngest son's at work. So I'm here alone tonight.
All right. It's a pleasure to have you here producing. We missed you producing last week. We made it. We got it. We did it. Had fun. And it was a very good show. And now we've milked it. We certainly saving the best for right now. As coming in from Birmingham, Alabama, his home's in Alabama. He is a founding member of the panel for Talking Memphis Wrestling. He's the chief financial officer of Talking Memphis Wrestling that has zero, I guess I can't say it has zero money in the bank account. It doesn't have a bank account. But it's good to have Pat Trammell join us today along with Panetta in the house. and everybody else. Hey, Pat.
Well, it's good to be back. Do I have my mute button right? Can you hear me?
Yes. You've
All
been
right.
you've
Well,
been you've been tinkering around.
I have been tinkering around. I've been trying to be a better panelist.
Well, what you say is good 99.8% of the time. Just sometimes you talk and you got yourself muted, or you should have yourself muted, and we see all kinds
I
of noise coming in.
I have equipment, so I figured it out. David, so good to hear about your mother. We've been thinking about her.
All
Hey,
right.
Rod. Rod, I was afraid too. I was afraid I was Randy's target tonight.
No,
Okay.
no,
Well,
no.
good to
You're
be
not.
home.
I am not saying by the end of this show you won't be my target. Here's the thing. This is what we're going to do today. We are going to review last Tuesday's Tales from the Territory, as we're going to dissect it as we put the graphic up of Tales from the Territories. Last week's episode was Memphis story time from Death Mantel, Jimmy Hart, Jeff Jarrett, Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Tales from the Territory. And tonight, I'm going to be off the air about 2 minutes before 9 Central. Make sure we are. We're out of there, even if we have to make this a several part episode, and we probably will. We'll be out of here because on the Vice Network tonight, they're taking a look, and we have pictures to back this up. The legendary Jerry Lawler, Andy Kaufman feud that came in Memphis, Tennessee, and led up to that appearance on the David Letterman show. That's picture number one of Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler, and Andy Kaufman. This is the actual match as Lawler is giving Andy Kaufman his head. Andy snatches a headlock. Lawler popped him back in a suplex pile, drove him twice, and that resulted in a disqualification. We may have one more picture. If not, yeah, that's just a two-shot, and you see Lawler's facial expression. And kind of the message I'm going to be giving on this show is Jerry Lawler is just such an unbelievable, great wrestling talent. I listened to him today on the Busted Open Series Radio with Buckley Wayne and Dave LaGreca, and Lawler is just absolutely fantastic. So we'll review that. We will also take a look at Extreme Rules. I think we can back that up. We'll talk about the Donnybrook six-man tag team match. That was great. We will talk about the fight pit main event between Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins. And we will also talk about the return of Bray Wyatt to the WWE. We will also talk about the behind-the-scenes fight between Sammy Guevara and Andrade in AEW. And just a month or so ago, CM Punk fight with the Elite. Man, I'm going to give a little rant. Just say the boys and girls are going to business on themselves, and they're shooting personal angles on the internet, and that drives me crazy. I'm also going to talk about Memphis fights in the past. Dundee and Randy Rose, Dundee and Randy Savage, Coco and Steve Kern, Dundee and Whoopi, Road Dogg argues with Brian Christopher, the Savage, Rip Rogers, Louisville or Lexington, Kentucky match. Moondog was attacked by his opponent and got hurt. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the recent NBA fight between Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. We'll certainly Pat's opinion on that from the Golden State Warriors. Also, should wrestlers be fired for fighting in the dressing room? We'll talk about the NFL's new concession or concussion policy, and we'll have a bunch of Randy Hales road stories. So we'll get to that probably about 45 minutes into the show. Right now, let's see, Adam looks like he's gone. I'll let Pat really be official doing co-host stuff. Is Pat, if you will let us know what Jim Early has to say.
All right. I don't know.
Okay, he says, got an interesting story for you, Randy, on Kaufman. I was at the match. Next day, I knew when he was in town, he usually stayed at the Peabody, so I went and hung out in the lobby. He came down, had a neck brace on, but was fire. I went with him in a few shops there in the mall. He was looking for a gift for his lady. All of a sudden, TV cameras show up, and he immediately started grabbing his neck in pain and went back to his character. He gave me a nice autograph. He was as nice as he could be. Thank you, Jim Early. See how easy that was, Pat?
Well, so I can't see it. I've got a different setup than I've had. I don't know why that is. I can't see the. Okay, now I can see it. Okay, now I'm ready.
So, well, that's okay.
David Lynn will watch the whole thing with the feud on David Letterman. Now, were you around during all this?
As a ring announcer, I wasn't in the office yet. But yeah, I picked up, and we'll get into that in just a minute. We might as well don't want to get into the Kaufman all the thing right now. I want to do a review at first. But yes, to answer your question, I was around, just not in the role that I would become. But I did pick Andy Kaufman several times up. He was just an odd character. How about reading Frank Seaton's message? Can you see that, Pat?
I can. Correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, but I had heard that sometime when Kaufman was in Memphis, he was dating a girl from Jonesboro. Is that true to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, I don't know. That was the absolutely first time that I've heard that, and I don't recall during that time period that Andy Kaufman was, as I remember, he was booked at the Mid-South Coliseum. He made a couple of TV appearances, and he went to Nashville maybe once, Louisville several times, and Lexington several times. Now, last week, the debut episode of Tales from the Territory, I did send you a link. Were you able to watch that show? And if you did, give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, and just your total thoughts, and then I'll let you know mine.
I watched your link. I rewatched the show last night. I thought it was fantastic. I thought I don't know how much. I know that Dwayne is the executive producer. I'm not exactly sure, how much he had to do with the formatting, but the formatting of having those guys sit around a table like that, I thought was fantastic. I could have watched 7 or 8 hours, and if you've been around Memphis wrestling as long as you have, and you know, as an observer as long as I have, you've heard pieces of those stories. But I just thought it was so well done. I am so looking forward to the rest of this series and learning stuff about territories I didn't know. But I think, I like the other Vice show, but I think this is so much better. I just think it's outstanding.
It was funny because I listened yesterday to Jim Cornette's review of the show, and like all of us, a very good show, but like all of us, he had never seen or heard, and he's been around like I have for 40 years, and he never heard the story that Spider Galinto or whoever the heck it was, eyeball was pulled out. Never heard that story. Then on Busted Open, Jerry Lawler was a guest today and on the show, and Jerry Lawler, who lived it, who was there, who was in the ring, and he said, I learned something new on that episode last week. I watched it for the first time edited, but certainly I remember Jerry saying that there at the thing. He said, I've known Jerry Jarrett for 50 years. I've heard the Spider Owl story for ever. So Jerry Jarrett made himself to be the toughest son of a bitch in the history of the wrestling business, pulling the eyeball out and the veins and biting them and the guy bleeding out and all that. So everybody was making fun of Jerry. Absolutely. I think in Cornette saying absolutely, never heard that. I've never heard it. Lawler's never heard it. On national television, and I kind of would do the same thing. I don't think I would talk about the eyeball popping out if it didn't happen. But certainly, I think it was embellished, but I thought it very good. So who did you enjoy? Whose stories did you enjoy the most? And I want to get Adam's opinion on the show as well after you tell us. Who did you enjoy the most?
Well, I think of all of them, and I've heard and I've read. I know the Galente story in Jerry's book, and I may have heard that story on one of his podcast things, but I don't know that I heard about the eye popping out.
No, that was just invented this week. That's new news. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I think Dutch is just one of the better storytellers in the world, and I love to hear his stories. Whether it's on a podcast or anywhere, and I love Dutch's stories. I just think he's a very fantastic storyteller. So I like hearing him. I mean, I like hearing them all. I mean, I you know what? If I was producing that show, I would not have had Hart there. I would have had you on there.
I'm from an era that they're not interested in. Adam said the same thing.
I would have had Dave on there, but I wouldn't have had Hart on there. But other than that, I loved it.
What Bully Ray on the show today? Well, see, it's all relative, and Hart was just so well known, and with the WWF, Bully Ray loved Hart's appearance on that show. Just everybody has different opinions. That's all there is. And speaking of opinion, I want Adam Dunn's opinion on the Memphis episode of Tales from the Territory.
Yeah, so I agree. I don't know that I would have necessarily taken anyone away from the panel. I definitely think that you could have added something to the panel. But like you said, in particular on this episode, it was stuff from early on. And yeah, I had heard the Mario Galento story before as well, but never heard the whole eyeball part of it. And my wife was kind of listening to it with me. She's like, did that actually happen? I'm like, that's probably a Jerry Jarrett embellishment there, if I had to guess,
Now the attack did happen. The attack did happen.
Yeah. I've
absolutely.
Right, yeah. I've heard the attack, and I've heard Lawler's story about what happened down in Mississippi also. But the one thing I was surprised that I never heard of was I had never heard of the Dutchman Jeff Jarrett match with the Louisville Orchestra. I thought that was rather unique and pretty cool that Lee and Jeff are the only wrestlers in the Smithsonian because of that match. That's a unique story.
Yeah, it is a unique thing. And I believe it might be on YouTube if you want to go back and watch the whole match. Have you tried to do that?
And yes, I did. And to Bo James's point, Bo, I thought the same thing. When they mentioned that Jim had a gun in Batesville, I thought that was Jim White too. But on the show they said Jimmy Valiant. But yeah, I agree with Bo wholeheartedly. I've heard that before, and it was Jim White that had the gun, not Jimmy Valiant.
And I think that was an editing issue because I don't think anybody actually said Valiant. Lawler said Jim. Certainly it was Jim. Now I wasn't going to acknowledge Bo's thing because I'm just not going to. Wasn't going to I don't mind correcting Jerry Jarrett, but I do mind correcting Jerry Lawler. I was not going to deal with that. But go ahead. You already dealt with it. So
I think Lawler said it. I think Lawler said Jim, and I think Jeff or somebody may have said Jimmy Valiant, and they just kind of rolled with it.
I thought Jeff did real good in the show. I thought he had a lot to say, and I thought he tried to ramrod the interview. Didn't you?
I thought he was definitely the MC of that group.
Yeah. It felt like Jeff was almost. It felt like Jeff was like the host or something. That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah. I think he felt, well, somebody's got to direct this thing. And most of the era they talked about was not Jeff's era. as far as being active in the wrestling business. I thought it was just fantastic,
Right.
just absolutely
It was almost
super.
presented that like Jeff was hosting it, and Jeff would like direct questions to Jerry and stuff. So yeah, that's the kind of feel that I got, that he was like the moderator of it.
Yeah, so in your eyes, and I'll tell you my score, thumbs up all the way. Adam?
Oh yeah, definitely thumbs up. I really enjoyed how they did flash scenes, did them slightly out of focus, so if the guys, because you're sitting there going, oh well, they don't look like them or whatever. They did a good job with that, and even the detail of like throwing the brick through the windshield. And I really liked when Lawler started to tell the Joe LeDuc story, and they actually played Joe LeDuc saying it, and then kind of
Oh,
come
yeah.
back to Lawler doing Joe's voice after it. It was edited. Yeah, I have no complaints with the editing whatsoever. It's the wrestling business, so of course the stories, it's kind of like fishing stories. A lot of times they get stretched a little bit, but certainly thoroughly enjoyable. And I would hope anybody watching that doesn't have the Memphis wrestling background we have, I think they could be hooked into, interested, and would want to watch future episodes like the one tonight.
Pat, thumbs up, thumbs down of the show last Tuesday night,
Oh yeah.
and any final thoughts on the show last week?
No, I mean, I thought it was great. I mean, I'm curious to see other territories. But I thought, we're nobody's going to be a harsher critic than the three of us. Uh, but I, yeah, it got some things got embellished, but I thought it was fantastic. I'm
You,
glad that exists to tell the history of Memphis
do
wrestling.
you not think for a minute when I tell a story at times, especially a road story, that I don't embellish things? It's just what you do. I mean, just try to make it entertaining. I have absolutely, even with the embellishment, man, I pop big for that. I pop big. So I'm glad he said it. I just don't believe it at all. Oh, absolutely great. I believe the incident happened. I just don't believe the eyeball popping out. Bo James, who commented earlier about the deal, I'm telling you, Bo, what he likes to do more than anything else in the world is, especially involving a legend like a Jerry Lawler or Jerry. He loves more than anything correcting a mistake to make himself out to be that he knows more about it than they do. Bo gets off on that. He's great. That gets over with me too. I love Bo. I love Bo. He's a carny. He's a wrestler. I am too. So I get it. I'm not knocking that fact. I just love giving him hell on the show today. He's a wrestler. He should be used to it. See, Greg thinks that's funny because he knows the deal. He absolutely knows the deal of what's going on. Now, what is your thoughts? And let's don't spend a lot of time on this at all, but we'll start with you, Adam. And it's just been out there so much. They made a movie about it. What are you looking forward to the show, the story tonight between Andy Kaufman and Lawler, or in your mind, is it done to death? Has the story been told?
Well, no, I mean, it's one of such a big deal for Memphis, for Lawler to be able to get on David Letterman because of it, and just even David Letterman at that time was on NBC, the same Channel 5's network, and just for all of that to get tied into it, it just made something that was already such a big deal in Memphis even more larger than life, because everybody that watches TV is like, well, Taxi or whatever, and then they see him coming down here, and maybe they seen him on like the Merv Griffin show or something, wrestling women, and then next thing they know, he's in Memphis. It's just almost like a big name concert coming to town, but it's cool when it's like intermingled in with your local stuff. And just Kaufman just always wanted to have he loved performance art, and he only taxi so he could do his little special and stuff like that. And clearly, like we mentioned, Andy was kind of a one-off type thing, but to him, it's just a lot of the reason that I like wrestling from a TV perspective. I think Andy enjoyed the wrestling from a performing arts perspective. He got to get that instant reaction from the crowd, and he got to interact with them, and he got to live out, being that bad guy or type persona or whatever. Andy just really got off on. He loved that whole performance of it and getting that instant gratification from it. And it just really worked out for the Memphis territory. Could you imagine if Vince Sr. had okayed it, or if Bill Apter had never talked to Lawler? It would have never happened. But it's just such a big part of Memphis wrestling history, and the whole thing with the Man on the Moon, with Jim Carrey portraying him the way he did, and being directed by a director like Milos Forman and everything, and just having Danny DeVito in that movie. It's I don't think it's been done to death. Yes, it's been talked about a lot, but I think deservedly so.
Hey, Brooks, what are you doing, my man? Everybody else glad you're on here as well as David Linville. It says that Kaufman made a great heel, and he did. And I want to hear Pat Trammell's opinion. Has it been done to death, or are you looking? You probably hadn't had it shoved right in your face as much as I have. It's certainly one of the most memorable things in the history of Memphis wrestling. There's no doubt about that. Your thoughts, and are you looking forward to this next edition? And by the way, I think they're skipping next week, but the next time they're back with Tales from the Territory, they're going to, of course, tonight is Kaufman Lawler. The next time they're going, they're spotlighting the NWA. What do you think about Kaufman and Lawler? Full screen for Pat Trammell.
Well, I don't think it's been done to death. I mean, I don't know if anybody knows this, but I'm an amateur student of the Civil War, and I've read at least 6 biographies of General Grant and 6 biographies of General Lee, so you get something a little different from every time you see it. No, I don't think it's been done to death at all. I will say this: if anybody is interested, you can go on YouTube. There's a 14-episode series, and I don't know who did this. Randy, you may, that goes through that entire feud and the entire angle, and it's as it happened, and that is worth an hour and a half of anybody's time if you want to see it. But no, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if they're going to have Lawler on there and Jarrett on there, and the story of how all that got together. But no, I'm looking forward to it.
I have no idea how they're going to do it at all. Did you have something to say, Adam?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I don't know if this is in particular what Pat's talking about, but just to piggyback on that, Comedy Central also did a really good documentary on the Kaufman thing, and there's a lot of good interviews on it with Lance Russell is on there talking about it and everything. If you ever get
That's
a chance
what I'm
to
talking about.
YouTube,
yeah, and it's on YouTube.
Yeah. It's the Comedy produced it, I think. I want to say in the 90s or something, or late 80s even, but early 90s is my guess. But yeah, they did a terrific stuff together. I'm from Memphis or something like that is the name. It's like the Andy
I'm from
Kaufman
Hollywood.
story.
I'm from Hollywood.
Really good. Yes. Yeah, I'm from Hollywood. Yeah, exactly. And it's all about the Andy Kaufman story. Yeah, so if you get a chance, if you haven't watched that Comedy Central special on YouTube, yeah, it gets a credit as one of the cameramen.
All right, here's the little tease. Folks, I guarantee you, Tales from the Road of the Memphis Territory, I'm going to do in just a few minutes, but we're going to talk a little bit about modern wrestling. I sent my panel. I already know that Adam didn't have a chance to look at the stuff that I sent him to watch. And Pat, obviously, you're the only other member of the panel that is here tonight. And you said that you did listen to me. You did watch those clips, and we're going to talk a little modern wrestling. And we're going to talk from about Extreme Rules last Saturday night on the Peacock Network, on the WWE Network. What did you think about the Donnybrook match, the 6-man tag match with the Brawling Brutes that included Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch against Imperium that included Gunther. We know him as Walter. What did you think about? And I've listened to all these, Pat. Jim Cornette reviewed them, so I'm going to not give Cornette's review yet or give my review yet, because sometimes I try to look at it as a fan and look at it from knowing this is 2022. I kind of try to live my life like it's 2022. You know, Jim Cornette has fond memories of things in the 70s and 80s, and so do I. But those days are gone. Some people just can't adapt to cell phones and modern technology and smartphones and the internet and that sort of thing. Everybody's different. But I want just that Brawling Brutes match. You said you had notes, so your thoughts there.
Well, I mean, you know, 6-man tag matches are, and I think I mentioned to you earlier that I kind of looked at it almost as a battle royal. But you get 6-man, you know, getting everybody in can be problematic, and then you know, chaos ensues and all that. And they were big guys, and so the ring seems a lot smaller. But you know, I love watching Sheamus and Walter or Gunther work. And you know they had a big part of this match, and I saw Walter when they did the UK NXT and the US NXT challenge at the Royal Rumble in Houston about 3 years ago, and I just think he is a perfect heel. I think he is. I love watching that guy work. I really did. So for that reason, I give it a thumbs up.
I give it a major thumbs up. Cornette thought it was the worst Walter match that he ever seen. He said it's the same old, same old. It was a car crash. I thought they beat the crap out of each other. I thought it was stiff. I thought they did have stunts. That was what the whole pay-per-view was about. It was Extreme Rules. To open the show like that, I thought it was just absolutely tremendous, and I give it a thumbs up as well.
Al, I agree with you.
As Al says, Sheamus consistently has really good matches, and he's the best, and he's older now. And Al, if you could look it up for me and tell me how old Sheamus is, be interested to know. I'd say late 30s, early 40s. But yeah, I'm high on him too. And I love that Walter, and I love that whole match. Those other guys I didn't really know. I didn't think they screwed anything up. Did you, Pat?
No, I didn't think so. I thought who needed to shine in that match ultimately shined, and I I'm I am I'm liking the WWE more since Vince left.
Adam says Sheamus is 44 years old. So he's in the mid 40s. And yeah, I'm enjoying the product as well. I did not like the second hour of Raw last night, but I went back and looked at it the first hour, and then I watched live the third hour. And I think that's very good. Now, here's another match that Jim Cornette did not like at all, but he doesn't like Riddle. He does like Seth Rollins. He just didn't like the concept of the match. It was a cage match. It was a fight pit match. You win by submission or a count out, a 10 count. They had a ledge built on the cage. It was a unique type of match with a lot of submission holds and wrestling moves and a lot of high risk stuff. It was the main event of the night. Daniel Cormier, I mispronounced the name, Cormier, the special referee from the UFC, did a great job refereeing. They did a huge dive off the cage. Riddle did one big move move that looked like he killed them both. That was great. And then they did the choke at the tap off. Pat, I give that match a big thumbs up as well.
I didn't enjoy it as much, but I thought they both worked it well, and I thought it was fine, and it was a little bit of a unique setup. But they had a lot, when you set up something like a fire pit or a cage match or something like that, and it just turns into a slugfest, I don't necessarily like it. But as you pointed out, there were a lot of wrestling moves, a lot of wrestling holds, a lot of attempts at submission, and I like that kind of stuff. So I liked it. I liked it fine.
Now, I like that six-man tag match great. But my favorite match, and I watched the entire pay-per-view, my favorite match of the night by far was Rollins and Riddle. That's my favorite match. But it's fine for people to have different opinions of what they like. That's what it's all about. Now, Tanner is asking me a question, and I'll let Adam, who knows me very well and knows that I can get pretty nuts pretty quick. And Tanner Adams says, if there's any way for you to ask Jerry Jarrett right now what he thought of the cage concept. Now, can you answer that question on whether that I right now will ask Jerry Jarrett that question? Go ahead, Adam. Answer that question.
No, he most definitely not ask Jerry Jarrett that or any question.
Pat, do you want to agree with Adam or disagree with Adam?
Yeah, I'll agree with Adam.
Okay. All right. That's all that needs to be said. Now, another thing Cornette didn't like, and it's not my cup of tea, folks. It's absolutely not my cup of tea. I never liked monsters. Lawler loves monsters in wrestling, and a lot of people do. And a lot of people, obviously, by the reaction the other night, loves Bray Wyatt. So even though if I don't like something, certainly if I watch it and feel that the people like it, the audience likes it, and everybody likes it, that it gets over, that has the potential to draw money, I'm all aboard the return of Bray Wyatt. And I have no idea whether Adam watched that or not. I sent that too. But he's saying no. Adam did a little bit of the homework. He did watch the Tales from the Territory. Is that right? He did watch that for sure. I thought the production was right on. I thought the people were with it. I think, as Al Tuttle says, SmackDown will have Bray Wyatt live coming up this coming Friday night. So, saying that, not my cup of tea, but I thought it got over, and I thought it was great, and I thought it was very well produced. Your opinion, Pat Trammell?
No, I thought it was fine. I'm not a big fan of psychotic characters that they carried on like the Fiend, but they brought Bray Wyatt out as Bray Wyatt, which I appreciated, and I like him. I think he's fine, third generation guy. I thought he was fine.
We're not going to spend much time on that at all, but we have another member of the panel. He's had electrical problems. He's had all kinds of problems. He really has, but the assistant superintendent of Southside School is made it in the house. This is a abbreviated version because we want to get out of here about 5 minutes to 9, so we have the opportunity to watch Tales from the Territory. Welcome to the show, Chris Ellis.
Well, thank you, RH. Glad I finally made it. Hi, Pat. Good to see you.
Hey, Chris.
Hope everybody's doing well. I'll have to be perfectly honest. I'm not excited about the episode tonight because my least favorite part of Memphis was the Andy Kaufman deal.
And we have just finished that subject up, so you don't have to talk about it. But I do, real quick, want to get your review in of last Tuesday's episode of Tales from the Territory. You watched it at home.
Oh, yes. It was awesome. Great memories. Brought back a lot of good memories. See, it's amazing to. Of course, I listen to Dutch all the time. Dutch is a great storyteller, but to hear a couple of things Jimmy Hart told that I don't think I'd ever heard before. So I'd heard the Galento story before, Mario Galento deal where he hit Jerry Jarrett and he did it to Lawler sometime. I don't remember
but you
when.
never heard the point until the other night. You never heard the point. You never heard the story that Jerry Jarrett pulled his eyes out of the socket and it bounced around on the ring on live TV.
Oh,
you never heard that before, right?
No, I'd never heard that part before. No.
I've been around and I never heard it before.
Yeah.
Jerry Lawler's been around and he's never heard it before. Jim Cornette, I reviewed his podcast and he's never heard it before. And I think that was a little added to the story on national TV, a little embellishment. But I popped big. I popped bigger on that than anything on that show. I love the fact that he does that. I think it's just part of it. Everybody's making fun of him. Since then, what did he say? He was biting the veins and the guy bleeding to death or something like that?
The jugular, the voice box, or the eyes.
Yeah.
I popped
Sailor Moran taught him that.
Yeah, Sailor Moran.
I popped on two things. Michael St. John made 2 appearances on the show. I was pumped about that.
Oh, yeah.
And they mentioned Jonesboro, Arkansas 2 times.
Absolutely they did. And I popped on all that. And overall, Pat said thumbs up. I said thumbs up. Adam said thumbs up to the show last week. How about you?
Yeah, thumbs up, no question. But tonight, already thumbs down tonight. Andy Kaufman. But hey, when I came on the screen, RH, y'all were talking about Bray Wyatt, so I'm pumped about that.
Yeah, we were done that, but I want to catch up with what's going. It was thought that was what was said on that interview. He didn't say that he bit Al. He said that Sailor Moran taught him how to pluck the eye socket out and taught him the other deal to biting somebody, that he was trained to do it. He never said that he did do that, but he did say that he plucked the eye out and bounced around on channel 13. So, all right, real quick, your thoughts on the Bray Wyatt thing. For what it was, the people wanted it bad, even though I'm not a fan of Bray Wyatt and that gimmick at all. They needed something big at the end of that show. They need somebody that the fans can get emotionally attached to, and they do with him, certainly. I thought the Bray Wyatt segment was done as about as perfect as they could get. I'm assuming you didn't like it, Chris?
No, I did like it. I'm a big Bray Wyatt fan. I'm a big Bray Wyatt fan. Yeah, I like Bray Wyatt, always have. I'm glad he's back. I think that Triple H is bringing back some of the people that Vince didn't like. The Good Brothers came back last night with AJ Styles. I thought that was good. So bringing back some guys that I think are good, and because like the Rey Mysterio and his son deal, I can't even watch that garbage. So I'm glad they got
best thing they got going.
I know. See, just different taste. But RH, you taught me this. You said the fans wanted Bray Wyatt. You taught me about 6 or 8 months ago. We were talking one night during AEW and talk about somebody turning and all that. You said the fans are turning him. They're not. Tony Khan's not turning him. That's what the fans want. So that's what's happening.
What did you think about the opening Donnie Brooks 6-man tag? By the way, the 3 things that we're reviewing, Cornette didn't like any of it, obviously. However, the opening Donnie Brooks match I thought was great. Did you have a chance to watch it?
I did. I thought it was good. I liked it.
How about the Rollins Riddle match, the fight pit match? I like that as well.
I did not see that part. I got a phone call during that time, and when I got back, it was Lesnar and Bobby Lashley and what all that took place at that point.
Well, actually, that was a link that I sent you from the Saturday night pay-per-view.
Oh, okay.
That's where that came from. Hey, Keith Jordan, what is going on, my man? I appreciate you watching Talking Memphis Wrestling. We're out of here. It's about 5 minutes before 9. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. We'll just see what everybody's hearing about it. The recent fight off of stinking social media, and an educator, Chris Ellis, I'm going to ask you a question that you might not feel real comfortable answering, and that's fine. Just say I pass if you have an issue with it. But this whole fight between Sammy Guevara and Andrade started on social media. Andrade, who wants out because Buddy Hunter is now running the WWE, so he's basically, I think, trying to get fired. So he goes on there and he knocks Sammy, and Sammy defends himself, and they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And last Wednesday night, after both of them, and certainly Tony Khan tells them, and as the boss, as the manager, the owner, you don't say, hey, so we don't want no fights. Said if you do fight though, you're not going to get fired. Apparently is the story that's going on. You're not going to get fired because that's what you're trying to do. We're not going to let you do that. We're not going to fire you because that's what you're trying to get fired, but we will send you home and not let you wrestle. So the story is that first time he saw Sammy, sucker punched him, and he wouldn't have had to because he's a big bad dude, and he could have killed Sammy. So my question to you, and we won't spend a lot of time on it, we'll get Pat's viewpoint on the story, and Adams too, if he has anything at all to say, and I don't think he will because he's not watching the. Oh yeah, he's back there. Anyway, as a administrator, how much do you have to get involved in BS stuff like this when students, like employees of wrestling companies, start going into business and shooting angles and saying negative stuff about each other on social media? How much of an everyday occurrence is that, if any, for you?
Well, at the job I'm in now, not often, but when I was principal, it's a daily thing. I was a junior high principal. The junior high is probably where that happens the most. Of course, we have all the anti-bullying things nowadays and all those different laws and guidelines that we go by. And, I mean, you deal with it, especially on Monday mornings, because over the weekend they were on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. They called me this name. They called me that name. They threatened to, quote, unquote, jump me. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And that's a constant for the less mature students. That's a constant thing. And as a parallel to that, when I owned the Traveling Racing Series, we had a social media clause in our rules that the wives, girlfriends, crew members of the racers would blast the series or sponsors on social media. If they did, they were banned. We got rid of them. Wasn't allowed. So it's a problem because people will say things on a keyboard that they won't say to people's face because there's consequences.
And when I was
standing there looking them in the eye.
When I was in the wrestling business, you know, there wasn't any social media. And Al says, do you think Sammy deserves any punishment? It's just a part of society. He was attacked. I mean, I would have fined Sammy for responding. He should have ignored the thing. Andrade instigated the social media by saying, the only problem I have with anybody is Sammy. Sammy then responded to that. Then that led to the fight. So, you know, we're going to talk about Memphis fights in the dressing room. For the most part, you know, Chris, let's talk about that real quick. And before we do, I want to get real quick in to your philosophy on that about how to discipline fights as an educator. I know what y'all do. Pat, your thoughts on the Sammy Andrade fight? How do you think it should be handled?
Do we know it's not scripted?
It's not scripted, no. No.
Well, I mean, it helps. It helps the company because we're sitting here talking about it. Um, you know,
See,
I don't
I
know.
don't think that. I think that's not the narrative. The people, I know, I absolutely don't think that because the narrative of AEW right now is that Tony Khan has lost control of the boys and the company is an absolute mess. And there's multiple people think they're not going to be in business another 6 months to a year. Anybody can type anything on social media. But between the Elite and Kenny Omega and Punk and between this situation, it's an absolute horrible bad look for AEW. And I guarantee you, if it is a work, it's the most stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, you know more about all that than I do,
Yes,
and
I
I
do.
agree. It appears that he has certainly lost control of all those guys, but he gave them all contracts, and uh, I don't know who said it, but made the mention of him being a mark, which that's a word
I
we
hate
don't
that
use around
word.
here.
Hate that
I
word.
know, I know.
He is a
I was just
wrestling fan.
I was quoting one of our loyal viewers.
He's a
Um,
wrestling fan. Usually people say the word mark, they don't even know what it means. They don't know what it
okay,
stinking means
well, don't yell
at
at me,
all.
Randy. I'm just quoting something.
Well, whoever
Um,
said in the first place, people tend to think, and hell, I don't know what the young guys say. Maybe the young guys say mark all the time. Who
well,
knows?
I think it's in common use, but I get my point of that
It's
is
not with me.
I
It gets
know,
my
I
blood
understand.
pressure up. Adam
I
Amos
know.
is most hotter now than I was 10 minutes ago when I was really hot, threatening to kill somebody. Anyway, oh, I'm sorry. I need to behave myself with Chris on the show with me. But yeah. So anyway, what do you think they should do?
Uh, well, I don't know what it has to do with all the contracts and stuff. I mean, I was reading some stuff today, and the general consensus is that Punk is a malcontent, and a lot of this can be traced back to him. I don't know. I mean,
I
I will
don't
tell
either.
you this. I think if now they're still drawing good numbers, but the product has gotten worse to me and gotten tired. Chris Jericho's my age, and he can just carry that thing for so long. And John Moxley in the spring chicken anyway. So you know, Hunter, I think, has got WWE headed in the right direction. And all the as much as I miss Vince, and somebody said they missed him walking out, and I do too. But they're focused on wrestling now. And AEW is focused on a soap opera drama right now. And you're right, Tanner. The honeymoon's long over. That is
And Memphis wasn't
that's the
soap
quote
opera
of the
drama.
day. Do
Did you
what?
not? I considered Memphis a violent soap opera.
It was a
100%.
violent soap opera, Randy. But you had Bill Dundee. You had Dutch Mantel. You had Austin Idol. You had Jerry Lawyer. I mean, I like Sammy Guevara, and I like the other guy, okay, but they're no Lawler and Dutch.
Whoever said they were?
Well, I know, but I mean, my point of it is it's supposed to be a soap opera, but you also need people to carry it through, and I just don't think they're hitting the mark right now with
Oh,
that program.
I think they're in trouble. Even though the last multiple weeks, I think people think that there's maybe they're on fire, and people likes going to watch the fire. Chris, do you remember years ago when Walnut Street Baptist Church, when it was on Walnut Street, burned down
Yes, sir.
in the middle of the night, right, or late at night, something like
Yeah,
that?
late at night. Mm-hmm.
I lived about 6 blocks. We heard the fire engine, and I was a young. What year do you think that was? In the
Oh, it was in
60s
the
or early 70s?
70s. It was in the 70s.
My dad woke me up, and we we walked the 4 or 5 blocks from Warner, basically Warner and Cover House, down to the Warner Street Baptist Church, and we watched it burn, man. People
yeah. Well, you remember that era? We had an arsonist in Jonesboro.
Yeah, and I won't get into the fact of who it was, but do you know? Yes or no?
I know who it was. Yes.
Okay.
But my point is, people would go when they get the report on the scanner, they would go watch it. I mean, it's no different than seeing a car wreck on the highway. Everybody wants to slow down and rubberneck and see what's going on. It's the same concept.
In the NBA lately, there was a fight last weekend in practice, and somebody's job is going. Do I think it needs to be Draymond Green getting fined or getting fired? No, I don't think that. Do I think Jordan Poole should get fired or whatever? Do I think that? No, absolutely. The old saying, the boys will be the boys. Absolutely, 100%. As an educator, I know you can't say that. I know you can't say that to kids. I know that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in a wrestling environment, the person that needs to be fired is that person that secretly taped that video and shopped it and sold it, I'm sure, to TMZ or whatever it's called. Your thought on the Draymond Green Jordan Poole fight?
Okay, well, first of all, you can't have teammates sucker punching teammates. But I want to harken back now. Wrestling, you were the wrestling boss. You fired a guy for an incident in the dressing room, and then you made it at work on television.
Yes, and we'll get into that in a minute.
Right, yeah. But my point is, someone has to be the boss. So I send Andre home. He wants to be fired. I send him home in pain and don't let him work for 6 months if his contract's that long. And I find Sammy and let everybody know we're not putting up with it, but Tony's proven he's lost control. Now, as far as the basketball side of it, they've sent Draymond Green home because this isn't his first issue. I mean, he's got issues all the time. He's highly volatile. And, as long as they're winning, they'll tolerate a lot, but he's getting a little older, not as productive. They'll move on from him because
isn't this the last year of his contract?
I believe so. And in the pros, it's about winning. I mean, that's what it's about.
So Jim Early says reports where TMZ was paid between $91,000 and $100,000 for the video. Do you also agree that the person who sold that to TMZ should be fired? Obviously, somebody at the Warriors, they should be able to figure it out because they had, I would think, limited. They wouldn't have fans in there watching practice, would they?
Well, to me, Randy, it goes a team, whether it's an athletic team or a trusted, like in Pat's case, a leadership team in his company or a wrestling dressing room. There's certain things that stay among that group that you can't violate that trust and that loyalty. Loyalty is number one. If you're not loyal, you can't be trusted. You got to go. So whoever did that, violated that trust, they got to be done. You can't have them around.
Pat, in the basketball situation, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, and the person that leaked the video, how would you, as a businessman, handle that situation?
Well, I mean, I've coached too, and I've been on teams, all my youth, and kids fight, players fight. They fights in the dressing room all the time, and we hear about them on podcasts all the time. A little bit of that is part of being on a team. You fight with each other, but you fight your opponent too, and that just happens. But the guy that leaked that, yeah, they got to go, or the girl or whoever, they got to go.
I'm going to interrupt this real quick, and we'll get in as Chris said. Well, you fired somebody for getting a fight, and I did, and I will explain that a little bit. And that situation from a legal standpoint. I had to. But my buddy, Randy Myers, that I'm with every Wednesday morning with Bud Trammell on the front row with Bud Road. Catch us in the morning at 9 o'clock Central tomorrow at 953theticket.com. If you want to call in, we gave that number yesterday. It's 870-930. I forgot the number. I think 9776. 930-9776. That's the number. I'll post it tomorrow on my social media. Randy Myers asked me, because he's the voice of the Valley View Blazers. By the way, Chris's school, Chris's team, Southside, Chris will be in the Central Dealership Stadium, the beautiful stadium it is, coming up on Friday night. Now, no, that's not right. Coming up a week from Friday on the 21st. Now, I was going to go. Of course, I would be on the home side. Chris would be on the visitor side. But in the halftime, we could have got together. We wouldn't have sat together because that's not right. It wouldn't have been right for him to sit on the Valley View side, and then I would be kicked out of my own family if I kicked out. Let me tell you about that ball game. As Randy Myers, hope you're still here, Randy. As thank you very much, Tanner, for putting that number up. 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. Randy asked what I thought about that game. How many times, Chris Ellis, you were at your own ball game, as I was excited and fired up and all excited about that ball game? How many times from stadium, dealership stadium, how many times did I text you to let you know what the heck was going on in that ball game?
Oh, 4 or 5. You kept me informed of the score and how good Valley View was doing.
And it was exciting. Then I listened to the post game, or I think Randy's was on his broadcast. I don't know if it's, I think you can get KBTM on the Tune In network. Randy Myers is a professional, man. He is good. Sometimes he tries to stir me up a little bit, me and Bud Trammell. Sometimes he's a troublemaker. And he hangs around with people that sometimes the pain, like Rodney Elwood. So I'm not putting Randy over all the time, because sometimes he gets me scratching my head. But as a broadcaster, that son of a buck is fantastic. As Brave says, Tales from the Territory were very good. Watched it the other night. It was so good. Been there, did that, loved it for sure. And all the stories were before your time. And I'm glad you were raised on Power Pro. I appreciate that very much. By the way, certainly, as Bray is in the house, Bray, at the game, the Valley View game, Friday night, I sat with your buddy, Ryan, my future niece-in-law. Sat with her and Corbin and Kanan and Preston and Amy and Steve. The whole family was in the house. Other family scoops. Busy month of October coming up. Kanan and Preston gets married October the 29th. Lance Smith wrestling in Marianna with a big card at the Civic Center. But do you think, even though I'm crazy about wrestling, do you think I will be at the wrestling, or do you think I'll be at that wedding, Chris?
Oh, you'll be at the wedding. There's no
How about
doubt.
you, Pat? What do you think?
Yeah, I believe you'll be at the wedding. I don't think Lawler Dundee 18 could get you to the wrestling match when a wedding's going on.
Not that wedding, not from that young. Absolutely, I wouldn't miss that for why. I'd be the type that I'd break out of a hospital if I was in the hospital and go to that wedding. I'm so excited about that. And Bray said, did she buy your ticket? She should have not. I have a meeting with you. I'll be at the wedding as well. And I really don't know what she's talking about, a ticket. I didn't know you had to have. I guess they're really wrestling promoters. Have you ever heard of having to have a ticket, buy a ticket to get into a wedding, Chris?
No.
In your life?
No.
But for Kanan,
he's talking about the ticket to the Valley View game, I think. He's wanting to know if she bought your ticket to the Valley View game. Will
you tell Bray, please, how I get into the Valley View games every week. Thanks, our old buddy.
Yeah, Bray, Coach Fowler takes care of RH every week. They got a relationship going back to Legion baseball days. He takes care of him.
I got a little season home game ticket. So, and besides, honestly, I think it's $5 ticket. I'm good. I can get tickets. I'm fine, but I don't have to. Thanks to my good friend, Coach Tommy Fowler. Pat Trammell, I need you at attention. Chris Fowler, I need you at attention. Pat, I'm also going to have Adam Dunn be at attention, and I'm going to have him put himself on here because now, as I have about 50 minutes left in the show, and I'm thinking about what next to go on the show, and I'm thinking before I get to story time in the show, and Adam had popped himself back up here, and there he is now. We'll ask Adam first the real damn fights in the dressing room for Memphis Wrestling. Do you want to hear those stories right here, right now, right today? Yes or no, Adam Dunn?
Yeah.
Well, man, he was excited about that, man. He was all overjoyed about my selection for subject. Yeah, he wants to hear the fight. How about you, Chris Ellis? Why don't you show a little enthusiasm better than Adam just did, please? See,
yes,
I want to
hear
say this.
I,
Adam's hanging around with Kevin Lawler too much. That's what that is. Because that wasn't a very exciting response about that at all. So I'm worried about Adam a little bit. So, okay, Chris, are you looking forward to Backstage fights, Randy Hales version on Memphis Wrestling? Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. I'm excited to hear it.
See, Adam, that's how it's done. How about you, Pat Trammell?
I think there's a whole book, there's a whole volume 2 in this, just the fights.
All right. Well, 2 out of 3 is not bad, as Randy Myers says, replying to Tanner. Not yet, but working on it right now. We stream live with audio and video on Blazer News Network's Facebook page. Also, live audio streaming on KBTM's TuneIn page. So, see, I just don't ask for stuff, Randy Myers. Just ask. So I come into your studio and you promote my stuff and give me hour airtime. But every week, and you watch the show, and I plug the front row. I plug you. I do all that thing. Now, I did knock you a little bit by saying you sometimes have poor choices of friends, but I guess so do we all. Certainly, usually with me in my life, my friends end up eventually my enemies. Certainly, and there is exceptions to that rule, like Jerry Lawler, and well, Bill Dundee has been an enemy before. He's been friend, enemy, back to friend, and I've just had the person I consider an enemy right now was never my friend in the first place. I just tolerated the idiot. Anyway, we'll look at the time here. What time is it, Pat? Give it to me in Central.
8:08 Central Standard Time.
All right, so I'll do about 20 minutes of fights, then I'll tell some stories that Randy West reminded me of, some funny Jerry Lawler CB stories. We'll tell that. I'm fired up. I'm excited, man. I'd love to give the Randy Hales punch to Brandon Baxter one last time. That's what's exciting to me right now, for sure. Now, we will talk fights in Memphis. Here's one back in probably 81 or 82, a long time ago. And I don't have a lot of details. I don't have a lot of these fights I did see, as a matter of fact. One of them, I had too close of a review on it. Randy Rose was a member of the original Midnight Express. First of all, Chris Ellis, do you remember the original Midnight Express? And if you do remember, I want you to tell me the Memphis version of the original Midnight Express, all 3 members. Go.
Randy Rose, Norvell, Austin, Dennis Condrey.
Ring the bell. We need sound effects, Adam. We need sound effects. We need a bell ringing. Randy Myers, you need to steal me a bell that y'all use on the front row of the Flood Road. You need to find me one of those because that would be great sound effects for this show. And Ray Brooks, that makes me sick, saying that I was probably 21 years old in 82, and he was 6 years old. And here's the deal. Randy Rose of the Midnight Express, Dundee was a booker. So Randy Rose was a fighter, and so basically he was mad at payoffs and mad at finishes and mad at something, and Dundee had a private room. So he goes in there and yelling and cussing and going crazy to Dundee and threatened to fight him. I don't know if he threw a punch at all, but Bill Dundee stopped the fight, and this is a story of several incidents we'll talk about Bill, because he settled things quickly every time with a weapon, and this time he went into his briefcase, pulled out a gun, and put it to Randy Rose's head, and that ended the fights, and Randy Rose wasn't long to the territory. That's story number one. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, I'm not surprised at all that happened, because I've heard Dundee stories before that usually he's not afraid to. But now he was pretty tough too, though.
How about you, Pat? How did you like that story?
I had never heard that before. I wouldn't mess with Dundee if he didn't have a gun.
Obviously, do we even need to get into the Randy Savage, Bill Dundee story? I think let's do this. Just suggest, if you have not heard this story, YouTube it and see if you can find Jim Cornette's account, Dundee's account, anybody's account of the Randy Savage, Bill Dundee thing. Now, it's a funny story that made Randy Savage, who was obviously back in those days, the early 80s, was messed up on something, obviously. And he was a hot-headed son of a gun for sure. Dundee was a booker. Dundee would get gifts from women all the time, presents. That all the baby faces did. So he got some tights made that said Macho Man on them. That happened to be Randy Savage's gimmick, the Macho Man. Now, nobody in Memphis, nobody got Randy Savage's ICW TV. Now, certainly they got it in Lexington, Kentucky, but they didn't get it in Nashville. They didn't get it in Naperville. They didn't get it where else. But Savage got mad that Dundee was wearing, and they were opposition. They were running opposition to us, so there was heat. They were putting out challenges to Jerry Lawler, Dundee, everybody. They were doing that, so there was heat for sure. But what set Savage off absolutely was Dundee wearing on television those Macho Man tights. So he called Bill Dundee up, say, "Hey, I don't call myself the superstar." So Dundee cut Savage and hung up on him. So that was it. But they used to work out in Goodlettsville, I think, and I forgot the name of the gym, but the Fabulous Ones, Terry Taylor, different people was there. Dundee had to leave before the other guys did, because Dundee had another job. He had to go to the booking office to Jerry Jarrett's house to do the booking after he went to the gym. So Dundee had 3 jobs: working out at the gym, working out at the office, or working at the office, booking, and then traveling to the town's a job. So that's 3 jobs, and wrestling's 4 jobs. He had a lot on his plate, but he left early, goes out, and Randy Savage and Thunderbolt Patterson and Angelo Poffo, Lanny wasn't there. Several people go, and they have a big brouhaha and fighting and cussing, and Dundee was by himself against the whole ICW crew. However, Dundee knew if he could get to his front, he could restore order quickly. So he would, I don't know why they let him get to the car. I would know exactly what he was trying to do. He popped the trunk, popped the briefcase, grabbed the gun. In the meantime, Savage jumped up on Dundee's back, but Angelo Popo was right in front of the whole situation. So Dundee pulled the gun, put it right at Angelo's head and said, Randy Savage, you get your effing dad off my back or I'll blow his effing brains out. And so Savage got off and called, well, certainly called his team. They ran back up the hill and got in the van and took off. Then Dundee wasn't home long. They called the police on Dundee. They ended up having court. And I think it was Saul Weingroff went to Dundee, went to Randy Savage, say, hey, guys, this is not good for the business. Said, y'all need to go to Broadway. No contest type of thing. And that's what they did. The Randy Savage fight with Bill Dundee. Your thoughts on that, Pat Trammell?
You said they went to court. You mean wrestlers' court?
No, real court, because they filed charges against Dundee for pulling a gun on him.
Okay.
Threatening to kill him. Real court. Yeah,
okay.
we never did wrestle court. Oh no, that's a WWF thing.
You know, it is amazing if people are throwing guns around, and that's not the first time I've heard that somebody didn't get killed.
It is a wonder they didn't, for sure. But I'm sure you've heard that story, right?
I had heard that story, yes.
Your thoughts on that story, Chris?
Oh yeah, I'd heard the story before because I thought, if memory serves me, did we not talk about that the night the three of us were with Bill? Did we not talk about that part of the time we were there? And then like he was on a shoot interview that I saw that.
No, I think we talked about it when we were there at the book signing.
Yeah, I think we did.
So Tanner has thoughts about that situation. The next story, and I wasn't here for it. I just heard the thing. Sometimes you had guys stir people up. In this case, it was Jackie Fargo, an old timer, firing up big time Stan Lane, Steve Keirn, the fabulous one, saying, and Lawler had taken over the book. Lawler had Coco Ware go out with music. Who sings Stagger Lee, Chris?
Oh, I don't remember, but they stole that. They actually stole that idea from Watts.
I think it was done before Watts did it. I think Dusty did it in Florida before Watts did it. I think
they may have, but they did it after Watts did it.
Florida did?
No, Memphis did it after Watts.
Yeah, I think Florida did it one, Watts did it two, Memphis did it third for sure. And Adam, that last comment Adam has made to me, be more specific because I don't know what that name means.
Lloyd Price sings Stagger Lee.
Okay, all right. Okay.
But Frank said that too.
All right. Got that. All right. So we're Nashville, Tennessee. We're Saturday night. The babyface dress on one side. Complete opposite side of the building, the Fairgrounds Sports Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. On the other, on the old Wedgwood Road, there on a Saturday night in Nashville, Tennessee. So Fargo was telling Steve Keirn, said, you got to do something about this. And it wasn't Coco's fault. It wasn't his idea to play music. It was Jerry Lawler's. Well, Lawler was booking at the time, so they wasn't going to mess with him at that point anyway. But so Steve Keirn started confronting Coco for stealing their gimmick. It got loud, and it got into a fight. And Keirn, tough son of a gun, tough wrestler, real knowledgeable wrestling, but certainly everybody gets blown up. So he won the first part. He started hot on the fight, but it ended up with Coco, or the story that I hear, Coco made the comeback, had the best of him, and they broke it up. So I would say probably most people would think that Coco got the best and Coco touched Kern like a son of a gun there. Your thoughts, Pat, on the Steve Kern Coco fight? Because that's one fight I would have liked to see.
I would like that see that too. I wouldn't mess with either one of them, but God, Coco was just so strong. I mean, just looks so strong.
He absolutely was, and I am trying to see 8:20, and I'm going to run out of time because I want to be out of here so everybody can watch the Andy Kaufman episode. I know that, Chris. I know you're not going to watch the Andy Kaufman issue. You did watch the Memphis Territory episode at all. I'll go through some of them quick. One time in 1996, Mid-South Coliseum, there was a long hallway, and this one hallway, as soon as you go into it, on the right, there was 4 private dressing rooms. So Lawler, for years, was in one room. The room right across was the office. So at this particular occasion, it was mine. And over the years, the other 2 dressing rooms, like Idol and Valiant and Eddie Gilbert, Tommy Doug, PG, Brian Christopher, just different people. Then you go into a middle room that we use as our TV room, our interview room to our market specific is Randy West. If you're listening to this show today, Randy West will remember that room that he's set up there. Then you go to the very back room, and the rest of the babyface talent will be back there. And then go down the main hallway a little bit. There was another dressing room, and that's where the Hales would dress as well too. So I was in my room, and all of a sudden there was the damnedest commotion you've ever seen in your life. I mean, a commotion, a cussing. So I got out there, and it was after a match, and it was Brian, and I watched the match, and then went right back to my office, and I didn't see anything wrong, but Brian Lawler was not happy with that match, and so he went right for Armstrong, and they were about ready to fight, and I hate to be the one that has to break up that daggum fight if they're throwing punches, but they weren't throwing punches, they were throwing words, and I did break that up. Just say, hey guys, whatever you say. Probably used a few cuss words, and I told Brian, I said, go to your dad's room, like I was a high school principal. You can relate to that. I said, Brian, you go to your dad's room. I said, Brian or Road Dog, you go to my room. And I said, Brian Lawler, you go first and shut that door when you get in there. So he goes, shuts the door, and I hear it shut. So I go in my room, shut the door, and so I get the story from Road Dog and say, well, is it over? He said, yeah, it's over. He said, just let the match. Yeah. I said, I'll be right back. So I go over, and Lawler's in there, and I said, what has happened? He said, I'm sure. He said, it was me being me, just hot-headed. I'm sure whatever told you, same thing. I said, is it over, Brian? He said, hell yeah, it's over. I said, come back with me to my room. Y'all shake hands, make up, and we'll finish the night and go to Louisville tomorrow. He said, okay, that's as simple as that. So real quick, thoughts on that. If anybody wants to catch us up on any messages I'm missing, man, as I'm telling these stories, I'm getting carried away and getting it excited. So thoughts real quick, briefly on Brian and the Road Dog. Brian, the Road Dog, of course, obviously was in Desert Storm not too many years before that. So I think I'm right on that. He was in some service, certainly, maybe not Desert Storm. But anyway, your thoughts on if it would have got into a brawl. What do you think?
Well, I was actually thinking that I'm not sure that Brian wanted to mess with Brian James. I don't. He was in the military, pretty bad dude. So maybe I was around Brian Christopher some, and I don't know that he wanted to mess with Road Dogg, in my opinion. But I wasn't there. But I mean, I could see how things can happen in heat of the battle and people get upset with each other. I mean, heated verbal exchanges, I don't think is out of the ordinary. And in that business with the trying to protect quote unquote your spot and always maneuvering to get better spots for better pay and so forth, I can see where things can be testy a lot.
Can you tell me what Tanner's talking about? He says, better get a phone call coming in, Chris. What's he talking about?
I'm talking about me not going to watch the Andy Kaufman deal and us getting off in time to do that. So Eddie Hillis just said, "What up, Chris? Hey, Eddie, how's it going?" EJ calls it.
EJ, get it right. Don't expose his
EJ,
gimmick. Man, you would be the type to expose a mass wrestler because you exposed him. It's EJ on the radio.
He put his name on the screen.
I know it, but still, I would have transformed. I would have said, "Hey, Eddie Ellis." I wouldn't have said, "No, I mean EJ." I would have left that part.
He needs to wear a mask anyway.
All right. Well, that's not very nice. For that ball game, the NEA game that you were too cheap to get me in, you used your card to get your dad in. Wasn't it Eddie Ellis that you got to get me into that ball game?
Yes, it was. Yeah. He and I have refereed ball together forever.
Now, on Bud's show, they call somebody a cheating referee, but I don't think it's EJ. I think it's Chuck. Randy Myers, if you're still on here, who's a cheating referee? I think it's Chuck. EJ will let us know that too. And this is total chaos and hadn't got to a dead-gum story yet. Well, I've told stories, but I'm not road story. Certainly, let me look around here. Also, apparently, there was a fight, again, I wasn't there, in Lexington, Kentucky, between Rip Rogers and Randy Savage. I understand Rip Rogers probably won the fight. That was a situation where Rip was working for Ole Anderson, and we were the short-lived Georgia Championship Wrestling Memphis type of deal. Apparently, Randy's ex was Rip Rogers' current girlfriend. I could be a little wrong, as Eddie Hillis says. It is the cheating referee is definitely Chuck. It's not Eddie Hillis. So I wanted to make that completely clear for sure, because I don't want that big son of a gun Eddie Hillis mad at me. But like Dundee, anyway, we won't get into talking about it. I will zip my mouth on that son of a gun, because people get all carried away when you're trying to be, not Eddie, but the audience gets carried, and Facebook gets all carried away. I would have been ripping on what I was saying, but sometimes people don't take a joke very good at all. All right. So Rip Rogers gets in a fight with Randy Savage. And then one of the girls gets involved. And I forgot, Greg, if you can remember which girl got involved. Was it Debbie Combs? Or I don't know who it was. But still, it was some craziness going on there. And then at that point, Tommy Marlin, Eddie Marlin's brother, was the referee there, and he was part of pulling them apart. So that's the Randy Savage story with Rip Rogers. Also, don't remember, and again, Greg might help me with this. When we had the Moondogs, and I wasn't in the territory at the time, not in the territory at all, but they had the Moondogs beating the crap out of people with chairs and trash cans and boards and everything week after week after week. Well, they brought a team in from Florida, and they weren't used to that kind of thing. And then they have a certain wrestler, I heard this after the fact, that stirred them up on the trip from Nashville to Memphis. So in the middle of a Moondog Battle Royal, do you remember the name of the team, Greg? It was two guys. They were here about 3 days. I have no idea what what the name of the thing is, but Eddie Marlin was at ringside, and he started yelling at the Moondog Spot, Larry Latham's partner, said he's cheating on your partner, cheating on your partner, and so they Cousin Junior goes to help, blah blah blah. The other guys take a powder as Pat Trammell is will be right back as somebody wants to see him. But anyway, so Eddie Marlin then goes back to the dressing room. They attempted murder right there in the ring. So Eddie goes back to the dressing room to his briefcase, gets his gun, and by the time he gets right back out there, the guys had this plan, Chris, 100% plan, and so they go directly from the ring to the back door. They had the getaway car all loaded up, and off they went, and they got out of there. We hadn't seen them since. Your thoughts on that story as we go full screen, Chris out.
I'd never heard that, Randy. Never even knew that had occurred at all. I'm trying to think back. Back in those days when the Moondogs had those beatdown guys. Roger put Chris Champion and I know Chris Champion and Sean Rule were there, but they were there longer than 3 days, so it wasn't them. But that's crazy that they already had it.
Randy, let's put Randy's comment up there on the screen real quick. As Greg says, it was a getaway card. It was for sure, and Tanner talks about that. And we got a comment from Randy West. Randy West said, I ran the tape in slow-mo. He hit Larry Latham 26 times in 30 seconds. 28 times in 30 seconds. And Randy, if you remember, I think it's just a team that came in, we booked from Florida. I think absolutely that. And it could have been serious eye damage there. And Larry had to put some, certainly had to take some time off. Now, the other story that you said I got involved in, I've told it so many times that we're not going to tell it. There was an incident in Ripley, Tennessee, over a knife, over gimmick sales between Bill Dundee and Whoopi D that ended up with a knife being pulled. And because of that situation with a knife being pulled, that is not just your regular dressing room fight for sure. And so I made the decision and told Bill Dundee the next day, because I was going to do it the next day. Waller was out of town, wasn't going to be on TV. And he said, Randy, obviously you don't know how Bill's going to react. He said, wait till I get back, do it Monday night. I said, no, it needs to be done right now, today. I let him leave the building, certainly. And then all the crew were hot about the situation, feeling it said that could happen to us after this. A lot of people were hot. It was just a mess, and we did turn it into a situation, Chris, that in about 3 or 4 months we drew a lot of money in a great situation. So let's wrap up the story about the fights with your comments on that, then we'll go to Pat, then we'll get into some road stories.
Well, I thought it was interesting when I first heard the story about Bill, and I remember it being on TV, obviously, and y'all working through that, but then hearing the backstory of the reality of the situation, that, of course, that real life drama, real life tension drew money, and it did once again. But like I said, I could see why those things occurred, and especially maybe even more so when times weren't as good at the pay window. I can really see where the tensions might boil over because money got tighter and things got tougher.
for sure this great conversation we're having as we talked about fights. Your thoughts on that, Pat Trammell?
It's amazing when, and everybody's been around workers that have gotten into it, this, that, and the other, and part of me thinks it's amazing it doesn't happen more often, and part of me thinks, eh, you know, it, it's I don't know. It's just it's interesting as to how some of those seem to just be momentary things, and some of them, I'm sure, like in any work environment, build up, build up, build up, and sometimes you just don't like somebody.
Now, guys, this will end up a multiple part series. We're already at week 2 or number 3. I'll have time to tell a few stories, but not every story that we heard. I will just at first tell the most dangerous road trip that I ever took in my life. So it was winter. It was in February. It was at uh, the beginning, as I said, in February. The year was 1994. I had spent a few nights with Randy West and Diane West there in Hendersonville, as Randy West and myself working on a multiple week video series promoting Monday Night Memories and working on Jimmy Hart produced, Jimmy Hart sung and written Monday Night Memories, working on all that, had a lot of work. However, the update for and the announcement and the series on Monday Night Memories that Saturday was going to be week 1 on a 3 or 4 week build. That's something Memphis never, uh, never certainly. I forgot where I was going with that story. Absolutely forgot where I was going with that story.
You said you were with Randy West working on a 3 or 4 week build of Monday Night Memories.
First time we ever advertised the show for 3 or 4 weeks, and we had this package for 3 weeks. This was going to be the first week. Thank you, Chris. You're exactly right. I just had a brain fart. So here we go with very important, but in Nashville area and all around, the ice storm of 94. I don't know where you were in 94, Chris. I don't know wherever you were if I had an ice storm, but where I was at in Nashville and then later on Memphis and Jonesboro, it was terrible. Do you remember? I'm sure your mom and dad told you about the dreaded ice storm of 94.
Well, I was in Walnut Ridge then, so I was close. I don't remember it, but I'm sure it happened there too. So
for sure. So it started bad weather, and the ice was there, and we had TV. And folks, if you're booked, and you go. So here it goes. It was going to be Whoopi and me, and it was the first trip Whoopi and I ever made together, and we for several years we rode together a lot. We lived fairly close to each other, and it was just easy. And he didn't have a car at the time, so we needed to ride with somebody, and so we just did that. And so we took this trip, and it was the most scariest trip I've ever seen in my life. A 3.5 hour trip probably took 9 hours. You would, on that I-40 westbound going to Memphis, you would turn a curve and there's trees down in the middle of the interstate. It was just scary, 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 scary. Nobody, certainly I wouldn't have slept. I was driving, but Whoopi certainly didn't sleep either. He was co-driving because it took both of us. You know, watch this tree, watch this tree, watch this car, whatever. It was a very stressful trip, but we had that television to do. So finally, back before, none of us at the time, I don't think anybody had a cell phone. I had to get in touch with Laura. And so finally, when we got to Jackson, Tennessee, about the 81, 82 mile marker, we stopped, called Laura. Finally, we stopped a couple of times before that and couldn't get him. Finally, we got him, and exactly what I was afraid of, he said, Randy, there's no motels left in Memphis. None. And so Whoopi had walked to the phone with me. I said, you think you can stay at Tony Williams or Spellbinder's house? He said, yeah, because Lawler told me. He said, but I knew Whoopi wouldn't be comfortable going to Lawler and Stacy. He said, y'all can come. He said, who's with you? I told him. He said, y'all can come here. And so then I immediately said, Whoopi, can you get a ride? Can you get a place to stay? So dropped him off there. And so it was me, Stacy, and Lawler, and no electricity in the house at all on Warner Grove Road in Memphis. But he had 3 sleeping bags, and he had a fireplace, and we lit a fire. And so we did sleep in the sleeping bag, not sleep very good, but we got up the next morning, couldn't shower or shave or any of that stuff, and we go directly to TV. But we should have known better, but TV, who was on was on backup power, but they were wall-to-wall news coverage. But right at 11 o'clock, Dave Brown was doing back-to-back wall-to-wall weather coverage. So right at 11 o'clock, he said, before we get back to the coverage of this storm, I'm Dave Brown. This is normally the time for the wrestling show. There'll be no wrestling show. However, we'll tell you about if there's a card coming up Monday night. We'll tell you about that. But first of all, I want to talk to Jerry Lawler about his match coming up Monday night. And so, risking my life, we did get that video show, but risk our life, and we never got on the air that day. That was a crazy thing. And so what in the world Randy West did for the out-of-town tape, I have no idea. Have no idea whatsoever, as certainly that's just a crazy situation, and we're scared for our life. What do you think about that story, Pat? You probably read that in my book.
I did read that in your book, but also I've been in a couple of ice storms like that, and you just don't know. You got to play it by ear and hour by hour.
Now, I'm not going to do these next couple of stories justice at all, because nobody can tell a Jerry Lawler story. As you heard from, I've got myself caught up here. Nobody can tell a Jerry Lawler story better than Jerry Lawler, and it's so funny, this particular story. My point is, I don't know if I can make it sound near as funny as it really is, and it's a couple of stories Randy West reminded me of just the other day. Chris and Pat, do you remember back in the day in the 70s, when probably the early 80s as well, the craze going around with CB radios?
I do, yeah, 70s and early 80s, absolutely.
What was your handle, Pat? What was your handle?
I never had a CB. I was too young for that.
How about you, Chris?
No, I did not have one, but my dad owned a linen company, and we owned, mops and mats and all that, shop towels, and his was the Ragman. I remember that. We had them in our work vans.
Jerry Jarrett's CB handle was Little Man. Eddie Marlin was Bugs Bunny. Jerry Lawler's was the King. Dundee was the superstar. And I don't remember Randy West's CB handle at all. Greg Peel, I want to know what in the world Buddy Wayne's CB handle is. I want you to give me that information right now. The inquiring minds want to know about that. They want to know about that, what Buddy Wayne, the Wayne Peel was, and he answers, and it is beast. So the guys traveling 2,000 miles a week, man, they had all kinds of stuff going on, and it gets tedious, and it gets boring, and it gets crazy, so you want to have some fun. So there was this woman on the CB, and this woman on the CB, she was talking about a clock, a big clock, a nice clock, and she was was explaining the handle of the clock and this point of the clock and the design of the clock and everything about the clock. She's talking and she's fired up and she's excited about this clock. Breaker, breaker, says the king. Says, you know, woman, I've been listening to you talking about that effing clock for 100 miles. Nobody cares about that clock. Nobody cares about that clock. Nobody cares about the minute hand, the second hand, the hour hand. Said, you need to take that clock and shove it up your ass. Oh, you better not tell me that. You better not tell me that, going crazy. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to tell the police. So about 15 miles later, Jerry Lawler, being the Jerry Lawler is, Breaker 19, we got a report of an incident, and this is Jerry Lawler talking here. We got a report of an incident on Highway 78 between Tupelo and Memphis. Can anybody give us some information on that? And the lady came on and said, who is this? Yes, this is a member of the Mississippi Highway Patrol. And said, well, I want to report an incident. So what is the incident? And so she said the whole thing. And then at the end, she said, and then finally, he told me to stick my clock up the ass. And Lawler pretended to be the policeman, said, ma'am, the only way that we can settle this whole situation right now is for you to go ahead, and this is Lawler as the cop disguising his voice, said you need to grab your clock, have it in your hand, bend over, and stick it up your ass. So he did it to her at a different time. So is that my audience interested, Pat, in stories like this? Crazy stories?
I'm just hearing Lawler go through that, and I'm sure 3/4 of it he was deadpan serious.
Chris, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, yeah, those are great stories, and those guys had to do things like that to keep themselves entertained. Doing 2,000, 2,500 miles a week. You got to be entertained because that's just monotonous. So you got to do things that are funny and tell stories and whatever to make it enjoyable, making all those trips.
One more CB story, and I want Adam to help back me up with this thing with the graphic as we'll put up. We'll go back in the 70s, and I think appropriate for this would be a picture of Jerry Lawler and Sam Bass. Picture of Jerry Lawler and Sam Bass on the screen, and it's another CB story. I didn't know that's the one I had loaded, but I like this picture better than the one I had loaded.
I'm liking that white belt Sam's got on. You don't see those anymore.
That is a great picture. Great job, Adam, on that. I got a boring picture
right
with black tights, but that's a great picture. And I'm looking at the time here. We got to hit our time cues on this show because Chris Ellis got to get off and he got to watch the Andy Kaufman Jerry Lawler show on Vice TV tonight. He's the first one that needs to get out of here, but I will tell this story. So, CB story again. Jerry Lawler in a car with Sam Bass in a car with the soon-to-be Dr. D, David Schultz. So they were messing around on the CB. They're messing around, and they were messing around with the truck driver. And one of the things Lawler said to the truck driver said, you goofy truck driver, don't you realize that when you're out on the road, traveling in all parts of the country, I'm at your house making love to your wife. Make the guy hot. So they did this for 50, 70 miles, and they had this truck driver at ready to fight, ready to go crazy. In another car was Eddie Marlin driving, Jerry, Bill Superstar Dundee. Eddie's car was a green Lincoln Town car. Sam's car was, I believe, a Ford LTD. Not exactly sure on that, but anyway, the trucker was hot, and the trucker wanted to fight and told Lawler to pull over, and and the truck driver said, "So you pull over, you son of a gun," and and Laura said, "When you get behind me, just bright light me." Said, "I'm in a." Remember, Lawler's in a LTD. Lawler said, "I'm in a green Lincoln Continental." Remember, that was Jarrett, Marlin, and Dundee, not Jerry Lawler. So the truck driver started bright lighting Eddie. Eddie been listening, and they thought it was funny. They were listening to all this, and so they were going to get out of the car, and Eddie was going to tell them, "So that's not us, man." But so what happened was, when Eddie gets out of the car, the truck, and he was just going to let the truck driver in on the rib, but the truck driver gets out of the truck with a tire tool and said, "I'll kill you, you son of a gun." And then Eddie gets hot because somebody just threatened to kill him. So Eddie has things with him that can restore order. But here comes the Tennessee State Patrol. They show up. They get in between the thing. They knew Eddie because Eddie at the time was a constable for Sumner County in Tennessee in Nashville. So he tells the truck driver, said, "First of all," said, "I'm a constable in this county, and not only am I going to kick your ass, I'm going to rescue you and take you to the Sumner County jail." So the state police, "Oh, no, no." And so kept Eddie's car there and told the truck driver to get out of the county quick. In the meantime, when that was all over, Jerry Jarrett got on the CB and told Lawler, Bass, and Schultz to stop at a Waffle House parking lot. He wanted to talk to him because Jerry, about thinking he's getting a fight and it's crazy and threats of guns and tire tools and everything. He chews out Sam Bass. He chews out David Schultz. He chews out everybody. He's pretty hot. So we will stop there. We got more stories to come, and we'll continue that plus all the breaking news. We'll go, I think, with Adam right now, with Adam thoughts on the road stories and Adam's final thoughts as we lead up to the Kaufman show coming up in just a few minutes. Final shots today. Adam Dunn, your final words.
Yeah, no, it's just I remember my dad always talking about CB stuff back then too. That was such like the 70s and stuff that they'll, like I said, no cell phones or anything. A lot of times just how those guys would communicate. And yeah, I can just hear Lawler doing all that stuff, just totally just being out there, just having a good time with it for sure. But yeah, I love hearing all those stories and look forward to more next.
Chris, final words on the show today. We didn't get to what I wanted to get to, but I liked everything. I like the opening stuff we talked about. I like talking about current wrestling. Just the whole show's been fantastic. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great show tonight. Glad I made it on. Those old CB stories from when I was young. The CB era was a golden era of time that's gone. It's gone forever. It won't ever be that way again. So that's fun to hear that. And like I said, those guys keeping themselves entertained as they travel. Funny.
Thanks for being with us, Chris. Thanks certainly to you, and also Pat Trammell. Final thoughts as we will be out of here in about 4 minutes.
I'm just excited for Chris to tell us next week when we get started. Our opening segment needs to be Chris's favorite parts of the Andy Kaufman story.
Yeah, that it's over.
Yeah, and then yeah, right. And then like
Al Tuttle
Al
says
then it needs to be. We're going going to make them watch the Terry Taylor tales.
So Al,
Thank you, Randy. I love the stories. That's why we're here.
Al is taking Pat's place in this place because he's pulling the Terry Taylor card on you, Chris.
Hey, if Terry Taylor ever watches this show, I'm the only thing keeping him relevant 2022. He's the only time he comes up in conversation is on this show. He needs to thank me that anybody even knows who he is nowadays.
Real quick, in 45 seconds, Adam Dunn, tell them what we do on Monday. Tell them about what we'll see this Monday night. I'll give you a little hint. It will be the December 12th edition of the Power Hour. What are we doing Monday?
Yes, so Monday, be sure to join us right here on all the same channels, same platforms. We watch the Power Hour, and watching what Randy just said, that edition of the Power Hour. The King returns. Last week, the King was not on the show. Sean Stasiak, the week before, kidnapped Stacy, took her upstairs to a loft area at TV5, had her stripped down to just her bra and panties on Saturday morning TV5 Wrestling. Of course, Dave had little comments about that on the show yesterday. But Lawler returns next week, so you'll definitely want to tune in for that as the Lawler-Stasiak feud that's just heating up on our Power Pro Wrestling Watch Party. Join us Monday at 8/7 Central.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit because obviously we did the Power Pro show Monday, the Tuesday show. We did that. The Wednesday show I do, 9 o'clock in the morning Central Standard Time. It's Front Row with Bud Row at 953theticket.com on the front row. And the phone number is 870-930-3776. If you want to call in for that show, the Front Row with Bud Row, you never know who might call in or who we may call. And last Wednesday, last minute, we talked to Tommy Wildfire Rich, and that was funny. And Al usually calls, and Tanner has said that he is going to call some certain time. And so we will always love people coming up, and that will be on Wednesday. Next Monday, the Power Hour on Tuesday. Of course, we're back. We're talking Memphis wrestling, and hopefully our buddy Michael St. John will join me, Adam Dunn, Chris Ellis, and Pat Trammell. This is a biggie of a month for me. My niece, Kanan, gets married on the 29th. So much stuff going on that's absolutely crazy. The Randall Hales YouTube channel, and I put up archives within 15 minutes of the show. These shows going on, so there will started that about 3 weeks ago. That will be good at all. I think we're off the air in time. Do you think? Did we make it? Did we make it, guys?
Yes, sir. 3 minutes to go. Oh, can I say something? Happy
Real
birthday
quick
to Dusty Rhodes in heaven.
Happy birthday to the Dream in heaven. How about that?
Yeah, happy birthday, Dream.
Big toast to the Dream. For Adam Dunn, Pat Trammell, Chris Ellis. The 21st, when it's Southside and Valley View, even though certainly I'm not going to be there, you know who I'm pulling for, and we also know who you're pulling for.
Go so Southerners.
Do what?
Go Southerners.
What? You can't say that on Go Valley View. Can't say. Can we edit this? That son of a gun out? No. Valley View. Great game, certainly. Unless they're playing us, I'm certainly supportive of anything. But my nephew Cal trumps my friendship with you, Chris. No doubt about it. Gotta go.
Blood's thicker than water.
For Adam, Chris, Pat, I'm Randy, and we are out.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales, featuring Michael St. John, Pat Trammell, and special guests.